Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sports on the Positive Tip. This is Kenny,
Kenny squared.
and this is where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. And we are so excited today to have this terrific guest who is going to talk about this great book that he just finished. He's going to talk a lot about fatherhood and manhood. And we also going to talk some 49ers football. So welcome to the podcast, Mitch Andersen. Mitch, welcome. Welcome. It's great to have you.
Dude, to the Kennys, I can't thank you enough. I'd raise a glass if I had one. Cheers.
Well, thank you so much. Let's jump right in and we'll just take turns ask you. I want to give you plenty of time and space to really talk about your book, and I want to hear the inspiration for writing that too. But I think both of us were really fascinated on your background. So you have 3 children with 1 on the way. This is so awesome. Are you okay these days?
Yeah, you know it, and you would know definitely. The real hero is the wife, right? Like, yeah. So yeah. The mother, she's carrying right now. She's got a bun in the oven. I can't say enough, gratitude, great things for her for sure. Mine more centers around, the 3 boys is what, I've had, what I understand. The moment we found out the next 4th was a girl, wow. That's what was like, oh, now I have to carry a shotgun when she dates, and I don't even, carry guns, and I'm 5'8", so, if she finds a 6'5" dude, how do I look intimidating to him? You know what I mean? So all that stuff that I never questioned before is now, front and center. Another big thing is I'm fine if my boys get beat up, but I don't think I'll be fine with my girl if she gets beat up. No. So I don't know how that works. Do you have any? I assume you have children, but any girls that you could give some wisdom to me on, or?
Well, yes. And Kenny's not. Why don't I let him go first? I have 5 daughters, and I'll say this real quick.
Oh, wow.
Okay. But we have 7 children, my wife and I, and
nice.
Our first two were girls, and I used to just say, hey, people would say, oh, don't you want a son? Don't you want a son? Because I love sports back then. And I was like, I want them to be healthy. That's it. And it was such a blessing to have those first 2 girls. But I got to say, when Kenny popped out and he said, hey, it's a boy, I was like, yes. I mean, is he healthy? But Kenny's got 2. And so Kenny, talk about what it's been like to have, what I have Eliana. So his first was a boy and his second is a little girl.
Yeah. It is very different. It's kind of crazy because first boy, we're like, okay, yeah, we got the boy out of the way, but also having a daughter is just a totally different ball game. I definitely kind of see that idea of, oh yeah, my son gets hurt, it's like, okay, yeah, no, you could walk it off, you'll be fine. Girl gets hurt, it's like, oh no, what's gonna happen? Is the world gonna end? So I totally get that though.
Yeah, and Mitch, you got a long way for this. One of my daughters, his sister is getting married in April. So
okay.
Yeah, that's it. So
you're dealing with it. You're right there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I literally thought of this. I was like, listen, I think myself to be a pretty solid guy, but if I was, at the time 28 asking for, my own hand in my daughter's hand in marriage, I'd be like, Mitch, get out of here. I'm not going to let you marry my daughter. Even myself was unqualified for sure. And so I'm like, how does a dude even get qualified, when you don't have anything, right? So there's a lot. God's going to teach me a lot through all this. I know.
Oh, no doubt. But you will feel different. We'll just tell you that, right? You will absolutely feel different. So Mitch, I really, I'm looking at your background as a medical device rep. I am so curious. We're both so curious. We were talking about this before you came on. Where was the jump here to writing this book that is giving so much great advice to men and where we fit in? So talk a little bit about your journey here and what led you to writing this book.
Yeah, no, definitely. I always was kind of in awe of books and authors. C.S. Lewis is a big role model. But I never thought I was in that camp. I always told my sister, hey, you got to write a book because she'll read stuff like Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. She'll read these massive volumes, and she has a good eye for that, good ear, good kind of critical mind. But I was never thinking I was going to be in that camp. I studied music, wanted to be the next Justin Bieber, and out of college, that was kind of the play. And so I thought I was still this creative type, and I wasn't ever expecting to have to, kind of cross over and be kind of an academic. So what had kind of happened was, then you get married and all this stuff my pastor had said kind of encouraged his audience, read just 10, 15 minutes a day. At the end of the year, you can have this much read. And all of a sudden I was like, when God uses his spirit to like enact what somebody has said, all of a sudden I was like, dude, I'm going to become a reader. So I became a massive reader. As much as you can fit in 15 minutes, all of a sudden I was reading, 20, 30 minutes a day. And that was just happening, right? And I think simultaneously it works of saying, oh, dude, I can't be the husband God wants me to be. I need to get mentors. And mentors are easy through books, right? They're all mentors. And so then there was kind of that piece. And then slowly, now as culture had shifted, we're having an identity crisis, really, that we see in men. And so that's really where it was the catalyst for me. I wouldn't say the book focuses on that, but that was that catalyst that said, hey, I got to get into this conversation badly. And when you have 3 boys, you're kind of saying, man, I don't want them to grow up in this world. I want them to be able to have kind of the power and authority in a Jesus sense, kind of servant leadership, to really be able to have a voice back into the culture. Because I think fathers' big mantle is they got to give identity to their kids, to the world. And so as we see the silencing of fatherhood, more of like a provider, sit on the couch, don't question anything. All of a sudden, now I've been brought into the conversation. And so it's amazing. About 9 months ago now, God just downloaded it, right? All this stuff that I'd been learning, I was all of a sudden a writer. And it was, have some, on that frame, it just kind of came out. And that was kind of where I wanted it to be able to be. God, if this is not inspired by your spirit, I don't want any part of it, right? I don't want to waste anybody's time. And so I don't know if that was a good enough nutshell, but that was really kind of the catalyst that said, hey, get into the fray, write this book. I will touch on the medical device piece. I've now been in sales for, I don't know, 7, depending on how you kind of classify it, but we'll say 9 years, kind of in sales and that kind of thing. And in sales, you always lead with the positives of as most of us know this. I'm not going to come into a sales conversation and lead with the negatives of my product. I'm not going to say, well, yeah, you're going to, in about 3 months, it's going to wear down. The scissors aren't going to cut this kind of thing. You lead with all the positives. I lead with this. No, this is the good stuff. And you learn how to kind of say, well, we'll work through the bad stuff. You want to go with us. What's crazy with God, and I've seen this shift, I get to be fully honest. I get to say, dude, your life, it probably is going to stink for a long time. Like God's going to have to get all this junk out of you. He's going to have to grow you as a man. And so what's interesting is God is giving me, I think, this gift through professionalism of being able to convince people, persuade people, but I get to be truly genuine and honest. And that's kind of this piece that I love, because usually I'm trying to convince my counterpart that, hey, you can trust me. I'm not like all the other salesmen. And so there's kind of that piece going on there. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's really kind of the heart behind it.
Oh, I love that. What an amazing story. And I love the passion behind it. Go ahead, Ken. I know you've got a couple of questions.
Yeah. Really, when you were talking about how there's been such a huge culture shift, especially when you're talking about manhood, what would you say is kind of your philosophy behind man's original design?
Yeah, dude, I loved it. I love that. Obviously, you asked that because we know as believers, kind of is laid out throughout Scripture. We kind of have this kind of model to follow. I kind of would say, if I can boil it down to something, I think the definition of manhood is that there's going to be storms in life. And if there's going to be storms, you have to have the right foundation. And in order to have a foundation, I think, in theory, to kind of transcend from this metaphor of foundation, rocks, stone, into the other side, is we have to be men of conviction, right? So we have to have something that we're willing to say, you know what, this I will die for. This is the sword I will fall on. And so kind of the whole crux of the book is taken out of Matthew 7 and Matthew 7, 24 through 27, where it talks about the wise and foolish builders. And I think God gives us this great image of saying, hey, you guys want to be men, and you want to be an immovable man, and you want to be somebody who can be so strong and rigid and yet still compassionate, still have a backbone and yet still be kind. These are complexities that I don't feel we can ascribe to as men unless the Spirit, downloads that into us and kind of guides us through it. And so this thing of I could always ask God, okay, so God, why don't you just take away the storm? Why don't you just lift it, make it easier, that kind of thing? And if that's the case, it's kind of like when we're on vacation. I can be on a beach somewhere. I don't need a foundation when I'm on vacation, right? I just need a Mai Tai, and I need to be having fun and a blast. But I'm not really tested in that, right? But dude, once you see a tidal wave coming, you're going to want to run to higher ground. You're going to want to find that foundation that will really shelter you in the storm. And so obviously, as man steps into more responsibility, and I know you all know this, but stepped into more responsibility, you're going to be tested. When I'm a husband, it's not like when I was single and my wife comes to me with a question that's so complex or wants a bigger house, and I'm like, how do I double my income to pay for this house? How do I be a father when I'm supposed to know what to do with a kid who's got 105-degree temperature? And I'm like, well, what do I do? It's 2 a.m. I don't want to take him to the ER. That's going to, jack up my budget. Like it's going to, I'm not going to be able to afford it. And so then these complexities really began to hit. And I'm like, I know I'm not alone, And so I want to have a firm foundation. And obviously Jesus is a great person. The Holy Scriptures, the Bible are a great place to find that. So in a long-winded answer, Kenny, that's kind of where I'd have to go with it.
Yeah, I love everything you just said. It makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. Mitch, where do you point to a specific time in space where our roles went wrong within society, or has this just been an evolution, over the course of some time?
Yeah. What this interesting thing is, and I know that you would both have such, great opinions on this as to where it was. We know that generally in the Christian evolution, it's the symptoms are never the problem, right? You have to go upstream, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, here's where we went wrong. Here's where culture went wrong. Oh, I see how the enemy, he was trying to kind of manipulate culture back here. And all of a sudden now we have the explosion. I know for me personally, the transgender hit really, really knocked me off my socks. And the book really doesn't go into that per se. Maybe a paragraph is dedicated to it. So, kind of when that apex, I hate I don't want to get political, so I'm careful with this. But when it comes to Caitlyn Jenner, once being Bruce Jenner, so 2015, I think the big hit for me was when she got the Arthur Ashe Award in 2015 from ESPN. And what was interesting about that, as I dove into it, there were two other people that were up for that award. One was Noah Galloway, a double amputee who was on Dancing with the Stars, right? A war veteran, right? Yeah. He got passed. And there was this other gal, I can't remember her name. She was, I believe, she was either an NCAA athlete, or she was actually in the WNBA. She ended up dying 3 months later of a brain tumor after the award. So she was playing at a professional level, with this award, and somebody for, mutilating and modifying their body gets this Courage Award. I discovered it's actually the Arthur Ashe Courage Award. So to me, this weird, wherever we're at in society, sideswiped and took from two people that were far more, arguably far more qualified to have that Courage Award. You know what I mean? And so maybe in 2015, I'd have to highlight that there was a famous man who did great things. Obviously, a 10 decathlete, champion in the Olympics, incredible athlete. He could have achieved it then, but then we have now in 2015 this happening. And so that, I think, was this catalyst that kind of pushed the conversation to the forefront. And now we are in 2023, 8 years later. And, this is where I was like, dude, that's my catalyst. We've got something skewed, and I want God to come back to the conversation to give men their identity, male and female. He created them. That's how the whole, pardon me, the whole Bible starts off, right? So So that would probably be the identifying points, if that makes sense, Kenny.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Absolutely does. And what a moment, that was. And for me personally, just not in a great way either, because I am old enough to remember the 1976 Olympics, and
Yeah.
being on the Wheaties box and everything. And
I love that you
yeah,
know the date. That's so
yeah,
cool that you know the date. Obviously, yeah, yeah. Anyways,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, so um what it's very interesting because like kind of looking at I was reminded of as you were talking, I
yeah,
was looking back at the Arthur Ashe Award, and I remember like that so vividly too.
yeah.
Um so what do you think are probably one of the bigger ways that men nowadays can kind of recapture what God has designed for manhood? Because I feel
Yeah.
like that's one of those things where it's like it's really challenging because of just the huge clash when it comes to culture. What would you say would be like the best advice you could give?
Yeah. I have to always go back to the Bible, right? I'm going to say this, and this is not to toot my own horn. In my pursuit of wisdom, this would have been, I think, when I was 14. I had felt inspired to memorize the book of Proverbs, right? So I set out on that quest, and there was probably, there were some years I took off, but ironically, it happened at 31. When I was 31 years of age, there's 31 books in the Bible. I ended up memorizing the whole book of Proverbs, right? In my quest for wisdom. And now at the heart of that, it was very sincere. I love the word of God, right? It gives me such truth, right? And then I have something to go back to that's credible, that's really been tested year after year, been out through the kind of a legacy thing. And then so I had to keep it for 5 years. So every day I would, memorize or re-regurgitate 6 chapters of the Bible 5 days of Proverbs 5 days a week. So, but this all came to a head about 9. Well, it's funny. About a month before the book was written, I had to give it up. I was challenged by my mother. Hey, Mitch, maybe you're exhausting yourself memorizing scripture. And I could sense in my own spirit, God would want to speak to me. And I drive a lot for work when I'm driving, and I'd be like, wait, God, I got to get through the Proverbs. So already you can see a problem here, right? God's wanting to speak to me, but now Proverbs in a weird way has become an idol. And I think the enemy was like, oh, dude, I got to figure this out. So Satan was like, I'm going to shift this. Okay. And so then, culmination of 5 years at this would have been 9 months ago, I had to give it up. And when I gave it up, I felt my heart tug on it. And I was like, oh, I feel the filth of the Pharisees, right? I feel that same filth that would say it's my righteousness, my righteous acts that would kind of, get me there. So I gave it up. And obviously then what comes out? This book, it was like simultaneously, oh, you're giving up everything to God in that framework. But on the same vein, this same importance, God has now used that, because there was still good, obviously, in memorizing the word of God, and the heart was set on the right path. But this interesting thing was that the Bible gives such truth and such ability to be able to know how to operate throughout all of life. So what I'm on a quest to do is try to inspire men to, hey, get back to the word of God. Every answer you need is there. And so the fix is, and I have 5 attributes, in the book is what I go into, 5 attributes of manhood. I believe there are 300, there are thousands, what you can find so many attributes of what a manhood is, what a man is supposed to look like. And so really, that's kind of this quest that I'm on. It's like, as the world can't really define what a man is, the Bible gives you a billion definitions on what a man is supposed to look like. And I'm going to dive deeper and deeper and keep going just to exhaust the enemy and his tactics to try to bring confusion, to say, hey, God's got the most clarity you could ever imagine for the definition of what a man is. So I love that question, Kenny. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that answer. And that, and where we sit every week, both Kenny and I being pastors,
Nice.
we get asked that question, we get asked that question by men. I'm blessed enough to have someone heading up our men's ministry, and I know Kenny's doing a lot of it himself in the church that he serves at. And so I love that, just taking it back that simple, right?
Yeah.
Let's go check what the word says. A last question for me, and then we can turn it over to some sports talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this has been amazing, by the way, Mitch. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But I love how there's a part where you ask about knowing your purpose of getting out of bed every day. And I'm fascinated to know what yours is. Like, what gets you up and going every single day?
Yeah. I wish that was kind of on that spectrum. I wish I was kind of like when I think of, I don't know, Jocko Willink, as a Navy SEAL, I'm sure you guys are familiar with him.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear him, I know he probably has his struggles, but whenever I hear him, this guy is just rock solid. Yeah. Every day at 4 a.m., he has his purpose. He goes. So for me, it's funny because I definitely still have the struggle to find purpose. I still, every morning, my time with God has to inspire me. So it's definitely, I don't want to paint this picture that I have it all figured out in the wake up. And the reason why that's so important, I think, for us to know in culture is that I have to go every morning to the Word of God to wake me up, right? To give me some kind of truth, some kind of purpose, some kind of meaning for the day. And so it's very interesting because the reason why I really set out on this quest was that I needed the Bible to be practical. If I can't use it in my daily life, it's not important. And I think that's the mind of a man. It's like, listen, I don't have time to wrestle with lofty ideals. I got to get through a 12-hour workday. I got to weld a whole skyscraper. I've got to, be in the cold. Whatever it is that a man has to do, meet his quota, all this stuff. The Bible can seem like stuffy, and it can seem lofty, and it can seem like, listen, yeah, righteousness, holiness, not even sure what those words are, but they don't apply to my 12-hour day. So you know what? I'm going to shelve that. And maybe when I have some time, I'll, wrestle with it. And so really, for me, the thing that gets me to wake up is knowing that I am a weak man who is incapable of doing anything, right? And so I have to go to God. It's like manna, it's just like God wanted us to have to go back to him every day. That cup of coffee, we'll throw in coffee here, but that cup of coffee with the Word of God and a really good book. I'm going through this book. It's called Love and Justice by Jonathan and Maya Irons. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. I'll give a shameless plug to that book. It is, man, is it rocking me right now. Jonathan Irons, I pray, if anybody knows him, I would love to shake this man's hand because he has really shown me that, hey, you think your life is hard? Yeah, try the Missouri State Penitentiary on for size for something you didn't do, right? So So sorry. But that, if that makes sense, the thing I wake up for is my time with God to say, you know what, Mitch, you're my son. My identity, your identity is in me. Let's be a father. Let's be a husband. Let's honor our bosses in the workplace. Let's make a difference with our friends, and let's inspire men to be what God called them to be.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. All right,
Well,
Kay, I'll turn it back over to you now. Let's get some 49ers questions in here,
nice,
man.
Nice.
This is an iconic franchise here. Go ahead, Ken. What do you got first?
I guess I'll start out first with how do you feel, like, give an overall assessment of how you feel this season went? Because I know there's a lot of very interesting dynamics there.
Yep, dude, isn't there a lot there? This was the first year I've never thrown money at the Niners, right? I was never confident enough, and I always wanted to be. The closest I felt like in my confidence I got was with Jim Harbaugh and Colin Kaepernick with the Ravens. I thought that was going to be their year.
Yeah. And
Harbaugh was really, I think, the only one, arguably, who could understand Colin Kaepernick. He fashioned the team around him. Yeah. And so when that kind of fell apart, I don't know if anybody else could. It's the argument with all of them, right? Bill Belichick makes Tom Brady. Phil Jackson makes Michael Jordan. There's all these kind of those pieces. I think they had a nugget there. But anyways, I'll get to this year. Sorry. So I was going to throw money. I didn't, but I would have thrown money finally at this 49er team because I was so confident. I was like, listen, he's onto his third string quarterback. Well, his second string. But, you could throw in Trey Lance, Jimmy G, and then he gets to Brock Purdy. It was like, dude, the catalyst here is Kyle Shanahan. There is no injury that can stop him. And then we had everybody injured. It seemed like at one point another, Bosa, Armstead, you know what I mean? And it was like, no. There is no question. I don't care about Jalen Hurts. He's been out for 4 games. You know what? This guy, we're going to take him, totally. And so then it comes down to momentum is key, right, in everything. And I'd love to get your guys' take on Devontae Smith and what or Devontae, anyways. Devontae, I can't remember if it was Smith or Adams. Smith, on that catch, right? And the momentum shifted, and now we're off to the races. But what's funny is that was the first full game I got to watch this year because, it was hard to get to watch the Niners on TV because, certain places weren't picking them up. We battle with the Seahawks for like televised where I'm at. And so it was always televised with Seahawks and stuff. So first full game I really get to dive into. It was my birthday celebration, right? So the kids, it was like, kids aren't going to interrupt, I don't care. This is going to happen. And then, you see this catch and then they're on to the next play and then they do the replay and you're like, he didn't catch it?
Yeah, he didn't
what are we going to do? Maybe you guys can give some feedback on that.
Oh, that broke the momentum. I thought that was early on. You usually don't see a game-changing play that early, but that was right, Kenny? I think that play changed the whole game very early on.
I agree. I think it completely changed the complexion of the game. Like, yes, quarterback injuries happen, but I feel like that kind of broke their spirits a little bit,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Tom Brady retired this past week, right? I think this past week. And of course, the talk came back up comparing him to Joe Montana. So, Mitch, you sound probably a little bit young and you look a little bit young to remember Joe Montana playing, but I do. Montana was fantastic. Objectively, what's your take? Montana, Brady?
Yeah, so obviously it's hard to defeat the Montana. It's hard as a Niner fan. I've been a Niner fan for 25 years now. I was 12 when I became one, right?
Okay.
And I grew up in a very blue bleeding Seahawks, community. My whole family loves Seahawks, but I presented this other side. So, undefeated in the Super Bowl, arena, it's hard to throw that when Montana is such a kind of this persona, that definitely hits him. Yeah. But I think it was the Atlanta game when Brady came back from 28 down, right? Yeah. I think that was the Atlanta Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So at that level, and I think wasn't that his 5th Super Bowl win? The Atlanta game?
Yeah.
So at that point,
I think so.
We had set it up where it was okay. Brady's got 4, Montana's got 4, right? So everything's on the line here. If he can take it, he's now got 5 rings according to Montana's 4. And then this interesting thing happens when it's like, but okay, he's 28 down. There is no way in the second half you come back from this. No way, And something shifted in Brady's mind, and this guy just came back and dominated. So I remember, I think it was my buddy Emmanuel. I think it was him that I had said, you know what? Brady's better. It was just like, how can I arguably, with such on the line, arguing GOATs. I think I have to, in football, I have to give him the greatest of all time. Yeah. And then he continued to pile on kind of this piece. And then obviously he does it again with the Bucs, proving it wasn't, I say this cautiously, it wasn't Bill Belichick, maybe. I mean, I don't know, but he does it with another team. Yeah. And goes right back into it. I kind of wish he would have retired on that high note. It was such a high note.
Yeah.
But, then you have this year, and I don't know. Is that what's your guys' take on it?
Oh, no, I'm exactly with you. I loved Montana was just unbelievable. And to go undefeated like that. But I think I compare, Kenny and I talked about this last week. I think when you compare like Tom Brady and just going outside the sport and LeBron James, you get to these championships, like LeBron James been in how many 9 finals, Kenny, and
something like that.
Brady, 10 Super Bowls. You get there that many times, you're bound to miss 1 or 2, right? And run into the Giants, run into the Giants a couple of times. Montana, I mean, he just had this aura about him, like you said. But I'm with you on Brady, and I love that you said that Falcons game that sealed it for me. I think him winning the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay double sealed it for me. But you
Yeah.
can't. Montana was just unbelievable. I throw Terry Bradshaw in there too, who was also 4-0 in Super Bowls. But that whole team, he doesn't get the credit, I think, because that whole Pittsburgh Steelers team were all Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Uh,
Can we touch on
yeah,
LeBron? Just because
yeah,
I'd love, and this is more of a question for you guys. So I'm gonna, and even with respect to the Mamba, I want to throw Kobe in there too.
yeah.
So full respect. I don't know if it's too soon. That's still a kind of a sad story, but it's hard for the fans. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. How do you weigh who's the best?
Wow.
Because I have my opinion, but you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ken.
I don't know. It's tough because also possibly tomorrow, if not probably by Thursday, LeBron will be the highest scoring player ever.
Wow.
Which is still kind of crazy when you think about it. I don't know. I feel like I don't remember who had said this, but like I think when it comes to the best player at their best, it has to be Michael Jordan. When you look at like, say, like the 96 Bulls winning 70 games and then just like wiping the floor with everyone in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to the longevity of a career, I think it's still got to be LeBron. I know he doesn't have as much in like at the top level.
Yeah.
But like when all is said and done with him, he might end up with most of the NBA records, kind of similar to Tom Brady, except for there's no way he's getting 11 rings, but but I think, I don't know. And then I think Kobe is kind of right under there. I think Kobe is a lot more Jordan-esque in the way that he played, where he's just like a stone cold killer. He's like the type that like, when he has the ball and it's late, you're afraid. I don't think that's the case necessarily with LeBron, but I do think that's the case with both Kobe and Michael.
Yeah.
I think that I go Michael Jordan for a few reasons. And part of it is he was 6-0 in the finals, and he went through, and I don't like to compare the eras like that, but he went through some really tough teams, the Pistons, the Celtics, the Lakers. I mean, he took on some all-time great teams. But it was just when I put together the whole cultural phenomenon, that was Michael Jordan. Everyone wanted to be like Mike. Chicago Bull fans here in New York all of a sudden popped up. Nobody liked the Chicago Bulls before that,
Yeah, totally.
Everybody was wearing Bulls. He was just a cultural phenomenon. And I will say this that makes it tough. And Kobe's right there. I mean, you can't take anything away. He was unbelievable. 6 championships. But LeBron, I think what I just, as I'm now starting to put his career in perspective, the type of pressure that was on him coming out of high school. I mean, the guy had high school games on national television. And
that's wild.
We've seen so many players wilt under that pressure, but LeBron has never been pulled over for speeding or drunk, or he's just been a really good role model. He's probably said some things off the that are a little bit wacky, but he's just been such a good role model for so long, and now I think he's still playing because he wants to play with his son, and who can fault him for that? But just if I put the whole Jordan thing in perspective, I give him just a very, very, very slight edge.
Do you think we will get to see, you bring up Bronny, do you think we will get to see them play together?
Oh, what do you think, Ken?
I think so long as LeBron's body holds up, I would say, it kind of seems like he would go anywhere that his son goes. So let's say his son gets drafted by, I don't know, like the Utah Jazz. He would play for Utah for a year just to kind of say like, hey, I play with my son. Like, I feel like he kind of wants to do like the Ken Griffey Jr. Senior type of thing, which, hey, I feel like I would want to do the same if I was in his shoes.
Totally. That's cool. Cause I was going to ask if it has ever happened in sports where the father-son did Senior get to play with Kenny Jr.?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, Griffey, not us. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, Ken Griffey Jr. I called him Kenny. I don't think he's ever been called Kenny before. So I felt like on the Kenny podcast, I can call him Kenny. No. Yeah. But they did get to play.
They did, yeah. A season and a half, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, I think they hit home runs in the same game, if I remember. Ken,
I think so.
Unbelievable. Yeah. They, all All right, I got to ask you this. We got to get your Jimmy Garofalo take before.
Oh yeah.
Because both Kenny and I have been Jimmy G fans because we're like, oh, what is wrong? All this guy does is win. When he's in there, they win. That's just and listen. And does he make bad plays towards the end of the game? Yeah, but so did a lot of great quarterbacks, in my opinion. I saw Dan Marino and Terry Bradshaw and some of these guys also. And I'm not comparing him to those guys yet, but I would take him on the Jets any day. If the Jets call and say, "Hey, we'll give you Jimmy G for a draft pick," I'm like, I'll go pick him up, because I just think the guy's a winner. But it doesn't seem like the San Francisco fans give him that same love, or the organization. So what's the deal there, Mitch?
Dude, it's so true. And I think it's because we're exhausted with the quarterback. We want, it's like 49ers is all about, we want the next Joe Montana. So we got it in Steve Young, right? And then when Steve Young, that's when I became a fan, was really when Steve Young started having his concussions. So I never really got to see their heyday. And so then we'll fast forward to Alex Smith, right? And this guy I began to really like. I was on board. This guy has a fight in him that can't be touched. And then he's benched at 7-2, right? He was a 7-2 record. You're going to bench him. Then you're going to throw in this other guy, Colin. Like, who is Kaepernick, right? But Jim Harbaugh, because we liked him, it was like, you know what? I trust you. You're going to do something. And then he fashions the team around him. And the thing that Colin Kaepernick had that I think we all liked was he was a fighter. Right, yeah. He'll do whatever it takes, and he's different. He's unique in his approach, even in the way that he throws. And it was beautiful to watch him run. So there was a lot of that. And so then what happened was when we lost Colin Kaepernick, I really think 49er fans were like, no, we didn't think it was smart for you to put in Colin Kaepernick, and you convinced us. And now we were on board, and now he's gone, because we were knocking on the door of the Super Bowl. I thought we had our franchise guy, and Jim Harbaugh had figured out, no, I'm going to make this young guy, great specimen of an athlete. He did well on covers. He had a personality. And so we lose him. And then obviously it's tough because then off the field, I believe it's unfortunate what happened with Colin Kaepernick, where it's like, no, we still want you. We still want you. Why have we gotten rid of him? So maybe he got the raw end of the deal. That's not really the point of the conversation. But then we fast forward to, trying to find that next guy. And the thing that I think we wrestle with Jimmy G, we didn't see the fight in him. He was too perfect, right? His throws were perfect. His maintaining the pocket, it was perfect. And I didn't see necessarily this fight. Right. And so then I think what had happened was he gets benched for Trey Lance. Right. He gets benched for he's like, wait, we had a winning season. I did great last year. You're going to bench me. I'm now elusive. And so I think for the first time, his core. Right. So he's like, I'm not the best. I've always been the best in whatever arena I've been in. I trained under Tom Brady. How in the world, are you benching me and all this stuff? But then Trey Lance gets injured, obviously, as we know, and he's back. And I saw the shift. Now I felt he had something to fight for. He was fighting for because he knew what it was like to be on the bench, being benched for somebody who was, maybe arguably less better just because he hadn't had the longevity, right? He was a newbie. Obviously, wasn't he a number 1 round draft pick, Trey Lance? I thought he was. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, he had that coming in, but Jimmy Garoppolo had been in the playoffs, and, he'd been more of a seasoned quarterback, so he gets benched. We see the fight, and then we lose him again. And it's like just this defeat after defeat. And so I actually came around to Jimmy G this year because I saw the shift. He was a fighter. I saw, kind of the fire in his eyes, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's even words are necessary to say, but that's kind of my take on the Jimmy G.
So interesting. Yeah. Kenny, that's and it makes perfect sense. Seeing it from a little bit of an insider there. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Mitch, this has been unbelievable.
Yeah. It has. I agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So I'm going to post all over the place where folks can get your book. Kenny will do the same. We'll make sure every person that clicks on our link will see your link as well. But I'd love to, after we've digested the book a little bit, maybe get you back on and dig a little bit more into those 5 attributes. Would you be willing to come back on with us?
Oh, you guys are great. I can't say how much fun I've had with the Kennys, and I'd talk to you guys any day. So
wow. All right. Kenny, we got it on tape, so we get him back on.
It's on the record.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's on record.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it there. Kenny, why don't you take us home?
All right. This is Kenny Squared and
Kenny
Mitch with K. Andersen, we'll say.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Peace out.
Thanks so much, Mitch.